Let's start off with one of the questions we were really keen to ask you in the webinar was when applying for a role and answering the dreaded question of salary expectations, what should people write? Many job seekers say they are happy to be flexible on salary for the right role in this market and don't want to oversell or undersell themselves. So what would you recommend? And this one comes up all the time for us. So it's always good to hear directly from employers what your take on that is.
Yeah, look, for me, it's really about, I think honesty is the best policy. If you think of it from the recruiter side, we are trying to get to know people in the shortest amount of time. I mean, that's recruitment, right? How do we get the most, how do we understand the person we're speaking to? Little data points that we might have, whether it's screening, interviews, all these types of techniques that the recruiters will use. And one of those data points is salary expectation. And so it really does tell us a few things about a candidate around their experience, about where they want to position themselves in the market. And being honest about that is a good thing, because it tells us where you've been, what you're looking for. And so underselling and overselling yourself will only happen when you second guess yourself and try to think, what range is this role being pitched at? Yeah. If you're, if we think of it, if you end up giving yourself, what we've seen in the past is people will undersell themselves because they want to get into the role. And they think, look, I'll get in and then I'll, my salary will recalibrate. But what we find is that moving in on a salary where you have gotten to a certain point in your career, your salary is quite reflective of your experience. And all of a sudden you set yourself back. It actually becomes quite demotivating over time. And progression is not guaranteed. You don't know how long you're going to be sitting on that salary. And it's just one of the markers for fulfillment in a role, right? It's just one piece that people are looking for. And so being able to just be really transparent and honest about where you see your expectations, I think, is critical. It's a good data point for the TA team to see, is that this person a good fit for the role? And also it's reflective of the candidate's expectation and where they see themselves at.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That makes perfect sense. And I think, aligns with very much the same as us. Yeah, it's really, we're trying to, when we have those conversations, we're always just trying to get people to be as honest as they can. Because as you said, you'll end up otherwise unhappy 12 months from then if you're, in a salary that, isn't equivalent to the level you've been at in the past. So totally get that. Okay, what about cover letters? Are they worth providing? Sometimes they're optional. Do you read cover letters? Do you think they're a waste of time? Or any advice on what should be involved in cover letters? What's your take on this? I've heard mixed reviews here.
Yeah, look, if I go high level on this one, and I want to remain high level, because every organisation, every consulting firm, wherever you're applying, they'll each have a different take on this. Some recruitment teams, internal recruitment teams, will use them more than others. And I know this because, I speak to a number of different recruiters across different industries and across WES. What I would say is, for Kmart Group, it's not something we use as a first data point. It might be something we use later down the track to nuance and get to know a candidate's motivation and aspirations, because they'll usually put it in the cover letter. Why are they applying for the role? Why do they think they're a good fit? For me, the team usually will gather that information in a phone screen where they can have a bit more personalization and context. So really, for us, the sheer volume of number, again, another factor in that for Kmart Group is we don't have an attraction problem. We actually have the inverse of problem. Yes. We have a lot of applications for a lot of roles. We can't read cover letters. So we're using filters to bring down the number of candidates, whether it's salary, whether it's years in the role, whether it's technical alignment. These are the things that are more important to us. And then we shortlist from that candidate pool. And then we may look at cover letters. But honestly, I think if you've got the right alignment and match to the role, we'll probably then engage you in a phone screen before we even read your cover letter. So I guess the long and short of it is, I'd make it short and succinct and talk about why you think you're a good fit for the role, but I wouldn't invest too much time on it.
Yeah, fantastic. I totally agree. And then with that, what about CVs? Like knowing your processes of how you filter through people in those first processes, any recommendations around whether it's keywords or any sort of components of format that could be helpful to, when it's in relation to Wesfarmers or Kmart Group?
Yeah. For me and for the team, the way I've seen the team work, it's probably more the don'ts that are the concern. The don'ts versus the do's. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want it to be really clear and succinct. If it's not formatted correctly, if there's incorrect, if there's grammatical errors, if there's sizing, font errors, those things definitely stand out for the team. I don't think you'd be excluded based on a poor CV, but it definitely doesn't paint you in the best light. You want to use that as your first ticket to an engagement with the recruitment team, and first impressions matter.
Yeah.
But we haven't met you, so the CV is really that window. So as long as it's presentable, think of it exactly like getting ready for a job interview. It's like, make it presentable, make it concise, make it really clear as to what are your different roles, and have a little bit of information in there around what each role does and what you were responsible for. But you don't want it to be overkill either. Again, that probably first impression wise says, hey, this person can't be concise. Right. If it's too short, then this person doesn't really understand where they need to flex and give a bit more information. So there's the don'ts are, not being concise, not being clear, and not presented well. I think those things stand out, but it won't necessarily be an excluder, because if you've got the experience and it's there on paper, the recruitment team's likely to engage with you.
Yeah, fantastic. I think my biggest recommendation when I speak to people about CVs is the deliverables as well, the metrics, and really having those achievements in there. It's really frustrating when people can say they've done lots of things but with nothing to back it. So that's always what I'm really looking for, and across the team. Do you agree?
It's a great call, Lucy. It's give me the outcomes. Give me the outcomes and attach that to your role. Spend more time on the outcomes than the responsibilities or the day-to-day tasks. It makes it easier for us to decipher.
Yeah, great. And when you were talking about some CVs being too lengthy and a bit long-winded and others being too tight, is there a sweet spot? Do you think, a certain number of pages or anything like that you recommend?
Yeah, look, I would say, maximum 4 pages.
Yeah.
If you have to, 5. But look, I think shorter and sweet, you're looking at 2 to 3 pages.
Yeah.
Should be enough, because at the end of the day, and look, this is just how we operate, we're looking at it as your technical data point. Has this person got the experience and the technical skills to do the job? We can get that from 2 or 3 pages. We don't need a laboriously put together CV.
Totally. What about, we've covered a couple of these, but are there any red flags or green flags for you with applications, things that you love to see or things that are really a pet peeve?
Pet peeves, I don't want to talk for the team necessarily. Everyone, in a large recruitment team like at Kmart Group, everyone has different things that they look for, and it can depend on your function. For example, making it difficult, for the merchandise team, making it difficult to find your portfolio and not have links and things like that. That's going to matter, right? A recruiter in that space will go, well, the merch people should really understand this, the marketing people should really understand this. If I talk high level, honestly, it probably goes back to the things that we spoke about, which is poor presentation in a CV. What does that say about the individual? The time that's spent on it. Too long. What if they can't be concise? Reverting back to what I mentioned earlier. too short, then maybe they're a little bit inexperienced. You know, these are things that just from a presentation, they don't put you in the best light or the best light that you want to put yourself forward for. So those things.
Yeah, great. I would say for me as well, photos on CVs, I think would not recommend unless you're, I don't know, there might be some roles out there, but generally the level we're at, that is an interesting choice, but I wouldn't recommend photos, not necessary.
When I was much younger, I did it. Someone gave me the idea to do it, you know, when I was going for like, I don't know, it must be a Coles or even a Kmart job, and
Totally.
safe to say I got no responses. So removed that pretty quickly.
Nanny jobs, I remember having photos, but other than that, you probably don't need them. So
correct.
Absolutely agree. Fantastic. And then the other one for me is just too generic. Like you can just tell it's ChatGPT kind of completely produced through AI with no heart to it. So that's you can see it from a mile away.
Yeah, actually, there's the flip side of that as well. The ones that are too familiar, where they're painting a picture, they're becoming too personal. They're introducing things about their personal life. I completely understand that it's important to humanize and connect and engage in a way that distinguishes yourself from others. But it's a time and place thing, right? When you've built some rapport, you're in an interview, you're face to face, great time to bring a little bit of yourself to it. I've seen CVs and cover letters that go into that without building the rapport and relationship, and I think that puts me off a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then diversity and inclusion. What do you guys do for the Kmart Group around diversity and inclusion in your talent acquisition process?
Yeah. So, I think a number of years ago, it started with some of those best practices. So we actually did diversity and inclusion training with our diversity and inclusion team. So inclusive leadership, diversity and inclusion training and recruitment, those things were the fundamentals, like how can we create more equitable and fair experiences for people of, all walks of life, whether that's the way we write our job ads, especially, we take for technology, they'd really put some focus in that area of attracting female candidates. Yeah. And then we did an analysis, and it felt like, what kind of came from that was our ads were not gender neutral in a lot of ways. So it started with some of those foundational things. How do we attract talent? How do we proactively source and understand what our makeup of each of the different functions are and what we should be doing to create better gender equality, how we can attract our First Nations talent as well for our stores network. That's really big, particularly, and it's starting to become more so in support office. So it's kind of that fundamental training, and then those practices around, equitable and fair panels, recruitment panels. Do we have males and females on there for particular roles? What message are we sending when we do that? How do we make sure our candidates that we put forward as a recruitment team are taking into account the things that we're trying to achieve in our diversity and inclusion metrics and strategic goals? So those are some of the things that we've put in play. And then one big thing is the inclusion of Sapia AI, which is our AI recruitment process, platform, which we've been attached to and integrated into our HRIS system, and is now part of our recruitment process for the last 2 to 3 years in stores, but now we're piloting it in support office. Ultimately, one of the key benefits of AI is a more fair and equitable process, because AI has no skin in the game, right? They're looking for technical skills. They're looking for the right match. They're not looking at all those things where bias and unconscious bias can play out. So that's kind of the future of it. Certainly, we talk about AI with efficiency and all these great things that it's bringing, but I think in diversity and inclusion is definitely going to play a huge role.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Great. Thanks, Daniel. I think that's all the questions Anything else you want to add, or anything that you think we haven't covered? That I know you're quite passionate about the space, and
Yeah, look,
anything we
I
can do?
just, I think the one thing I would definitely want, I was excited to probably share on the day is
Yeah.
just the importance of relationships and networking and building those relationships, being proactive, reaching out at the right time with, something meaningful to discuss or connect with. The recruitment teams do that really well. So building those relationships, because in an organization as big as Kmart Group, referrals matter.
Yeah.
They fast track you to the top of the line. And the truth is, with the volume that we have, we want to get through 250, 300 CVs. But realistically, that's very difficult. Often when you find the right talent, we need to move quickly because hiring managers need talent yesterday.
Yes.
So how do you distinguish yourself? It is really those personal relationships, because when my team gets a referral, whether it's internal, external, if they're using your networks is important, is what I'm basically saying, because it fast tracks you. It brings you to the top of the line. It's saying, hey, this person in the business who understands our complex operating model is vouching for this person, and it's at least worth a conversation. So I can't stress that enough. If you're applying at big corporate environments, how do you build and leverage your relationships? It's so critical.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in this market.
Correct.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for all of that.